Hey guys, welcome to the Dreams Guy podcast. My name is John Thomas, and we are talking about dreams. In this episode, we're going to take a look at a dream that's surrounding the life of Jesus. And it's one of those dreams that, again, often will get missed in the story. I was really surprised at how many dreams there actually were in Scripture after I'd been interpreting dreams for over a dozen years. And I started looking through in depth and realized there was a lot more than what I thought. This particular one is given to wise men. So here's another dream that is not given to someone in covenant with God, someone else. They're pursuing understanding, and they get this dream. But let's get into the biblical record, and then we'll talk some more about it. This is in Matthew chapter 2, verses 7 through 12. So Matthew chapter 2, verses 7 through 12. So then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, you guys remember the wise men? They're searching because of the star. They're searching out this child that had been born. Determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the young child, and when you found him, bring back word to me, that I may come and worship him also." When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they'd come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they'd opened up their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. You could so easily skip over that. It's just this little phrase in the middle of this very common story that we tell all the time, and yet it's clearly in there. Here you have three wise men that had been pursuing understanding. Now, there's a lot of questions. Where did these wise men come? Were they ones that had been under the tutelage of those that had learned from Daniel? Daniel had helped the Chaldeans and the wise men of the East, if you will. He'd been one of their teachers, had been operating in Babylon for a period of time, and he clearly had some astounding revelations of the Messiah. Some have suggested that it was actually because of Balaam's prophecy and what he had communicated, that this was what this was talking about, that they'd held on to that prophetic word. And Balaam had come from the east as well, not necessarily from exactly the same region, but in that general area. And so it's very possible that some of his prophecies had been held on to. We don't know where it came from, but we know that they recognized this as a sign that there was a king that was being born, and it was a king being born for Israel. So they clearly had some prophetic message that they were holding on to, they were looking for, and they followed this message. It was important enough for them that they left and went on a long journey into a foreign country, into Israel, to find this king. And if they're going to find the king, the first thing that they would do is go to the king. So you have someone that has a high level of influence. Your average person that has no influence and no wealth is not going to be showing up in a new nation and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go visit the king." King has plenty of things to do. He doesn't have time for anybody and everybody that just wants to come by to say hello. Just like we would think of a president or someone that is in a high level of authority. But there are people that have high levels of influence that could say, "Hey, I have something, I want to meet with the king," and they could get an audience with the king. So these magi clearly had influence. They had political clout, or at least financial clout. They had something that gave them this influence. And so they get to see the king. They find out where the child's going to be born, and on their way there, they were told by King Herod. Now, King Herod has a reputation. He killed a number of different people. He decided he was jealous of. He was concerned that they had ideas of being a ruler, that they were going to be talking behind his back, that he had a line of dead bodies in his history. He was not a nice guy. He was well known for being malicious and for being very demanding and a dangerous person. And so they surely heard the reputation once they got there, if not before they got there. And they're told by King Herod, hey, once you find him, make sure that you come back here and tell me, because I want to go see him too. And so off they go. They find Jesus. They worship. We get the beautiful story of the three gifts that were given by the wise men, which is why most often it's thought that there were three wise men, though it never says how many that there actually were. But there was three gifts that were given. And then it says this little phrase, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod. Now, for them not to return to Herod after Herod had specifically told them, make sure you come back and tell me, would basically be an insult. It'd be kind of like slapping his face, like, nah, you're nobody. We don't have to listen to you. They're cutting off all possibility of future relationship with this person, with this king, with this nation. Now, that is a big decision. Somebody that's in influence, you don't just cut off possibilities of relationships for flippant reasons. You've got to have a good reason. Their really good reason is they had a dream. Now, we don't know what the dream was. It never says what it was that they dreamed. How did they understand the meaning of the dream? Was there metaphor? Was there not metaphor? We're not sure, but we know that it was a dream, and because of this dream, they made this decision. And so we have another account that tells us the importance that we should be putting on our dreams. Now, clearly, they were not covenant believers, so it's not necessarily about their response, but it's about God's use of dreams. God spoke to them, and Scripture says they were divinely warned. So God himself had spoken to them through this dream, telling them his desire. He's protecting his son through a dream given to unbelieving people. So again, God himself is putting a lot of weight on this dream and an expectation that people would respond to it. And we need to realize that there are times when God gives us dreams that are supposed to have that level of weight. Not every dream has that weight. We have to discern whether or not the dream is from God, whether it's from our own soul. Jeremiah talks about the dreams that we cause ourselves to dream, or whether or not they're dreams that are prompted by the enemy. There are also dreams that come from demonic sources. We need to understand the source of the dream. We need to understand what the dream is saying. But when we've recognized what the dream is saying, when we know, then we need to respond, and we're held responsible to the revelation that God gives us. Clearly, from this example, that's the point that's being made here. These magicians, these wise men, recognized the voice of God, and because of that, they made a major decision and went back by another route, ignoring the direct request of the ruler of the region that they had gone to visit. That's an interesting thought about dreams. Is that the way that you think about dreams? Have you ever responded in that way about dreams? I'd be very curious if you've had a dream where you woke up and you knew that God was telling you something very specific that you were supposed to do or not do. How did you respond? Go ahead and send that in to us. You can go right to our website, streamsministries.com. Go to the contact form. I'd love to read a couple of those stories. I think it would be encouraging, and maybe we'll share some of those in another location. Guys, thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. My name is John Thomas, and I look forward to seeing you next week on another Dreams Guy podcast.